One thing that I discovered during research on the Ninja Turtles was that, mainly thanks to James Ralph the Angry Video Game Nerd, was that there were several old movie references on the show. I discovered that the titles of certain episodes were a derivative of old 50s movies, like the episode The Incredible Shrinking Turtles, which takes its cue from the 1957 movie The Incredible Shrinking Man. Invasion of the Punk Frogs, much like the 1959 flick Invasion of the Animal People. And then there were actual episodes which were taken directly from old movies, like Return of the Fly, which was a 1959 horror movie starring Vincent Price of Thriller fame, or The Beginning of the End episode, which was a 1957 sci-fi horror flick. And in the episode The Case of the Killer Pizzas, the pizza monsters bear a striking resemblance to the monsters in the Alien movies. And on top of that, there was a lot of pop culture TV and movie references like The Simpsons.
Well, don't have a cow, man.
Wrong show.
The Ghostbusters.
Your turtle come! Who you gonna call? Mutant Busters?
And The Wizard of Oz. I mean, for a show that is ingrained in pop culture, it really did borrow a lot of its source material from other pop culture shows and movies. Another one of the show's strong suits was the voice acting. Behind the voice of the Turtles was Barry Gordon as Donatello, Townsend Coleman as Michaelangelo, Cam Clark as Leonardo, and Rob Paulsen as Raphael. As a kid, for some reason I would always check up the end credits to see who did the voices, and this stuck with me right up until my adulthood. I would search online for interviews these guys had done talking about their time on the show, and thanks mainly to IMDb, I would check out other roles that they had played in the past. Cam Clark is known for his role as Liquid Snake in the Metal Gear Solid games. He was also the voice of He-Man / Prince Adam in the 2002 Masters of the Universe series. And he has voiced countless video game characters. I mean, this guy has worked. Townsend Coleman, outside of his role as Michaelangelo, is also best known for his time as The Tick and Sentinel Prime on Transformers Animated. He also has a ton of video game credits to his name, and he was the voice of NBC for several years, voicing promos for some of their most well-known TV shows. Barry Gordon on the show was the voice of Bebop. He has joked about roles he doesn't remember, and one of those was being on Mighty Obots, which for some reason I can remember the voice even though I have very little memories of that show growing up. He was also the intellectual within the group. He was the president of the Screen Actors Guild from 1988 to 1995. He's also appeared on various TV shows like ER and Star Trek Voyager, to name a few. And probably the most popular of the foursome, Rob Paulsen, who has a career that only a select few top voice actors can match, like voice god Frank Welker or his partner in crime from Pinky and the Brain, Maurice LaMarche. Arguably, he is more famous as Yakko from Animaniacs and Pinky from Pinky and the Brain than his time as Raphael on Ninja Turtles. I talked about Cam Clark, who has worked well. Rob has him beat, as his credits are just ridiculous. The other voiceover stars from the show are Renee Jacobs as April O'Neil, who has a lovely sounding voice that fitted the character very well, and for me, she is the voice of April O'Neil. Peter Redday as Master Splinter, who has an extensive voiceover career. He once voiced Mickey Mouse before Splinter, so in his words,
Peter, you are also, if I'm not mistaken, you've been Mickey Mouse for a while,
yes,
right?
I don't know if that's an upwardly mobile thing or not, but I went from a mouse to a rat.
Pat Fraley was splendid as the voice of Krang. He too has an extensive voiceover career that stretches back all the way to the 70s, and has been in several animated shows and video games. He was the voice of Max Ray from The Centurions, one of my favourite cartoons growing up. To go from sounding like Max Ray to Krang, which are two vastly different characters, shows his great range.
Very simple, even for you. You will place the crystals beneath the telescope at the planetarium.
Hi, I'm Max Ray. This is Jake Rockwell. I've never seen a cryogenics ray that powerful.
And ending this section off is the man behind the voice of the Shredder, the great James Avery. In my Fresh Prince of Bel-Air video, I mentioned how I discovered his name in the opening credits of Fresh Prince, but was unsure as to who he was voicing in Ninja Turtles until I went through all the main characters and discovered that it was him. His portrayal of Shredder was largely humorous and goofy. He had a few good lines in the show.
Net results 4 trapped turtles. I made a funny. Far from it. Tonight I dine on turtle soup.
I always enjoyed the episodes that he appeared in as Shredder, as it gave the show much greater significance. He sadly departed after 6 seasons on the show as he was playing Uncle Phil on The Fresh Prince, and he just simply couldn't keep up with the schedule of doing both. He may not be the most menacing version of Shredder in the animated shows, but he has the best charm, and what a legend. On top of his roles in Ninja Turtles and Fresh Prince, he appeared in other cartoons and TV shows, and he was quite the presence on screen and behind the voice. He will always be missed. Gone, but never forgotten. The influence of Ninja Turtles is so vast that I don't even know where to begin. Yes, there is the 80s comic books, but for me this show and the first 2 live action movies is what cemented the Turtles as a bona fide pop culture phenomenon. Yes, I've used those words to describe other franchises in the past, but with Turtles, it is very much justified. Thanks to the Turtles, there was a boom in the pizza industry, especially amongst young kids. The words radical, awesome, turtlerific, cowabunga became synonymous with the Turtles, and it influenced young kids speaking when they grew up. The series is still to date the longest running animated incarnation of the Turtles, and we have had about 4 to 5 incarnations of the Turtles in animated form. Over the past several years at comic conventions, the voice actors most remembered from all the animated shows are the ones from the 87 show. There was even a crossover with the TMNT 2012 show, which also had Rob Paulson in it, only this time he was Donatello. I can remember countless times growing up as a youth in Nigeria and in the UK watching this show with my friends and siblings. It was must-see TV. In Nigeria, particularly, it was an event. There was an episode, The Case of the Killer Pizzas, on a local channel, which was shown, and the next day at school, it was all anybody talked about, much like how adults would talk about football. To this day, I still pop on the show and watch a few episodes every now and again. It's something of a comfort show for me. With all the negativity that sadly continues to go on in this world, it's nice to turn off from all of that and find something positive to get your spirits enlightened. So, for me, it's watching classic shows like Ninja Turtles from the 80s and 90s, or playing video games. And speaking of video games, the recent release of Cowabunga Collection has brought back so many memories of the Turtles games that I grew up playing. Now, I've already done videos on Tournament Fighters and Turtles in Time, which were my favourite Ninja Turtles games growing up. The arcade game from 1989 was one of the first games I played from the Ninja Turtles, and it's heavily influenced by the 87 show. I've already done a video on the Cowabunga Collection, so please do go and check that one out. I also did a video on Shredder's Revenge. The release of Shredder's Revenge is basically a walking, playing advert for the 87 show, as it plays complete homage to it, from the drawings and the villains and even the voice actors, as the Fantastic Four return to voice their characters. The only downsides was not having Pat Fraley or Peter Renaday or Renee Jacobs playing their roles, and of course not having the late great James Avery was very sad. I said in the past that the Turtles in Time was like playing the animated show on a video game console, where you're just participating in the play instead of just simply watching. Shredder's Revenge, more so than Turtles in Time, does exactly that. It feels like you are indeed playing the animated show with the graphics used now as opposed to back in the day with Turtles in Time. And man oh man, if this game had been around during my youth days, I would have clocked up Guinness Book of World Record levels of game time on it. So the video games, especially the ones from the 90s, were heavily influenced by the 87 show in a very big way. Donatello was the brains of the bunch, and he's mostly responsible for the Turtles' arsenal. The Turtle Van as their go-to vehicle as far as their mode of transportation goes. the turtle blimp, which was used quite often, but for a supposed team of ninjas who are supposed to be secret, that blimp with their logo on it hardly screams secretive now, does it? Of course, there was the ninja weapons. There was also the turtle communicator, which was way ahead of its time, as this was the late 80s and there were no mobile phones that could fit into your pocket back then. Now it's everywhere with Apple phones and Androids. They also had grappling hooks, which would later become Mikey's weapon of choice, replacing the nunchucks. Now I could go on and on and on and on for a long time about my love for the show, but I got other things to do, and plus a lot of you would have tuned out by now, so I'll leave it at this. At some point I will do a video on some of my favourite episodes from the show. I've already done a video on the 1990 movie, please go do check that out, and I will also include TMNT Part 2 and 3 and the 2007 film for future videos to cover on Smugface. The Michael Bay movies, I don't know. I haven't really watched them and I don't particularly care to, but for the sake of covering the turtles, we'll see. TMNT 87 will go down as a critical part in the history of the Turtles franchise. It was at this point that the Turtles' popularity skyrocketed into the stratosphere. They did have lessons to be learnt, as in some episodes there were some PSAs that came up afterwards. It influenced a range of products that later incarnations didn't quite match up to. Its mix of goofy, campy, wacky humour along with some great action gave it a unique feel that other Ninja Turtles animated shows simply cannot replicate. It is a show that I will continue to watch until I am old and grey, and I will probably tell my grandkids about it. Overall, a tremendous show with a great legacy that will forever cement the Ninja Turtles as one of pop culture's biggest icons of all time. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you liked it, and if you want to see more, please remember to like, share and subscribe. Thank you.